Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well, and it is time for another edition of the YUNOREVIEW, where I go over a bunch of projects I didn't have the opportunity to review formally over the past month or so, more than that this time around, and sort of take them on gauntlet style, one opinion after another. That's what it is, you know what it is, so now let's do what it is, ba-bam! Many people categorize Yung Gravy as a joke rapper, as a meme rapper, and I could totally understand why, but his new LP over here seems like he's trying to cross over into something a little bit more substantive, a little bit more serious, songs that you can kind of bop to without noticing or caring about how funny they are. And for sure, he does draw up some hilarious and ultra catchy hooks on this one, picks some pretty colorful production too. However, there are some features on here that I don't really think complement his style, and plus, I still think he's at a point where his shtick starts to wear thin when you're listening to it on an entire album. I mean, Yung Gravy definitely hits when it comes to a song or two or a really great single, but for one track after another, the whole routine really begins to wear on me. But for sure, try it out. It's got personality. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. It has character. But the appeal of that character for me only goes so far. New LP from Westside Gunn, his Shady Records debut, which a lot of people have been anticipating. However, the quality and the substance he's delivered here isn't really that much better than what he's been dropping as of late. I would hope that on a Shady debut, he would pull out all the stops, and maybe in one way he has with all of the top-notch and really impressive features that he grabbed on this thing. But that doesn't change the fact that lyrically, West Side is still kind of hanging in this very average place. The production is exactly what you would expect on a Griselda-related project, and his features, which again are pretty cool. You could count Slick Rick and Black Thought and Busta Rhymes amongst those. They continuously outshine him track after track after track. Combine that with the fact that the work he does here with Benny and Conway doesn't really outshine anything that he did on What Would Sheen Gun Do. Yeah, it's just like he's really saturating things with the same quality stuff over and over and over, and it's getting a little stale. I was pretty excited for this new Napalm Death LP, but was ultimately disappointed to find that the production here is almost identical to what was on their last LP, but the band also tries to embark on some different genre experiments and fusions to kind of break up their very extreme and sometimes one-dimensional sound, and I don't really feel like them jumping out of their comfort zone works too well on this one, in my opinion. Just really weak songs, some questionable riffs and divergences here and there. Yeah, it's just a very underwhelming listen for me. The production, I will say, for the most part, on this Yellow Days record, I found to be pretty impressive, very funky, very smooth, interesting hints of synth funk and R&B popping up here and there, but the songwriting is off. The vocals are very off a lot of the time, really just doing way too much, trying to sound eccentric and sometimes even sensual and animated, but coming off just annoying instead. Sort of like a bad take on Prince or something like that. And also, on top of that, the track list is mega bloated, just way too much stuff on this thing. I feel like a record of this sound and style would fit much better into like a half-an-hour runtime, but yeah, a lot of issues weighing this one down for me. Few bangers on this NATHY PELUSO LP, for sure. Absolutely. She seems like a pretty talented artist and rapper, and, you know, it was those singles, it was kind of those promotional cuts that really brought me into this project, along with her Colors show that went pretty viral as well. And, you know, she really just kind of popped out at me, and for the same reasons I think she has for a lot of people. But as I listened to the rest of this album, I found the deep cuts to be not only average, but kind of derivative, just sounding a lot like many different records and artists that I was already familiar with from the 2000s, but kind of blended together in a way where it felt really vague, but I don't know. I guess into the future, I'm just hoping for a bit more risk-taking and something sound-wise that is as definitive as the personality that she puts into her music. For sure, I'm not saying stay away from this LP or anything like that. For sure, Latin rap needs more representation across the board, and I feel like NATHY is going to be one of those people to do that if the next record can hit a little bit harder. This Corey Taylor album. It's not good. New LP from JONSÍ. It's been 10 years since the last solo effort, and even though it's been quite a long time, and the production aesthetics have definitely shifted on this new LP, I feel like I'm hitting a lot of the same general issues. Many underwhelming cuts, songs and vocal performances and instrumentals that just don't quite work and come off really awkward, mixed with some fantastic tracks too. It's just a real mixed bag. And not a lot of focus, not a lot of consistency, but I suppose if you're a mega fan, you'll certainly get something out of it. Public Enemy, putting together some Luddite bangers on this one about what are you gonna do when technology's gone? It's gonna be like we go back to the 80s. Oh my god! There's some really questionable song topics on this one, honestly. I mean, some impressive features here and there, and I'm not really all that against the production either, but the rapping a lot of the time is awkward. Chuck D is really trying to pack like 20 pounds of crap into a 5-pound bag, not to call what he's saying crap on these tracks. I'm just saying, like, there's not a lot of flow to what he's saying, and he's really just like kind of railing on and on and on and on without paying much attention to how it flows as a song or a piece of music. It's like the message is almost taking precedent over how all of it sounds. And Public Enemy, I mean, message has always been core to everything that they do, but I don't know, just sort of seems like the songwriting is suffering a little bit at the hand of that this time around. That combined with, again, questionable song topics, feeling a little out of touch, while some things politically feel like they're more relevant than ever. It's a shame that Public Enemy isn't sounding as sharp as they used to, but there's certainly something to be dug up here, even if it is just the Fight the Power 2020 remix with some pretty impressive features on it here and there. Kurt Vile, new EP. Really pleasant, endearing, sweet, some fantastic songs on it too. The one with John Prine is amazing. Nothing too mind-blowing or new from him. Some tracks kind of raw and bare, some tracks a little psychedelic. If you're looking for some left field folk, give it a listen. New record from SHAMIR. Gotta say, I liked this one a lot more. I thought it was more tightly put together than the LP that dropped earlier this year, which was just a little too lo-fi, a little too messy, a little too rough around the edges. What's given on this record is a lot more listenable, a lot more well-structured too, even if, once again, I think my general issue continues here, that it is just a little too sloppily presented for the songs and the performances to really translate. Regardless, I am noticing an upward trajectory in quality in all of SHAMIR's stuff as of late, and I'm just hoping that continues. New LP from YG. I think it's one of his best in a while because it features some of his best material since Still Brazy. However, it seems like he's still stuck on this idea that he needs to pack his projects with all of these really generic, ultra commercial tracks with features that don't really complement his style and his sound, which ultimately just end up taking away from the likability of his music. I wish once again that he would come through with a project that just features good production, that celebrates his West Coast roots, with some interesting and personal storytelling. For me, that's when his catalog was at its strongest, and while he is going back to that a little bit on some of these tracks, simultaneously it seems like he's really, I don't know, kind of in a place where he has to compromise that or water it down in a way to get some extra streams and hits or whatever. Headie One, undoubtedly one of the biggest rappers out of the UK right now. This project is making the rounds, has a lot of attention on it. I was pretty hyped going into it, especially knowing that guys like Kenny Beats had some production on this thing, and I'm just not crazy about the vocals. I just really couldn't breach it, honestly. And it has nothing to do with his style, his delivery, his accent, or anything like that. If you follow this channel, you know there are quite a few rappers from the UK whose work I enjoy quite a bit. I just find his delivery and his tone to be very one note. Just always shouting, not really much in the way of modulation. Every word, every bar seems to get the same amount of emphasis. And on top of that, it's like this constant tension, this constant straining in his voice causes him to not really pay attention to where the pocket is or where the groove is on the instrumental sometimes, because a lot of the vocals sound off in terms of just the beat, the tempo, and not in kind of a smooth, charismatic, or funny way that you might get off of a Blueface record. So yeah, this one's just a loss for me. I'm just not really feeling this one at all. New ILLUMNATI HOTTIES mixtape, which is a cool mix of somewhat artsy, somewhat noisy punk rock with a Riot Grrrl flair. Some pretty funny and interesting song topics and lyrics on this one too. There are points where I think the vocals do grate on me a little bit, but generally I think it's a pretty good mix of tracks, and I think it's got a good vibe, good energy. If you're looking for something throttling, blood pumping, but with some layers of depth and meaning to it too, give it a listen. Give it a shot. Try it. Mariah Carey, B-sides and rarities. It's pretty good. It's got some good ones in there. Try it out. Wah, 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 wah. No, I do respect it. You know, Mariah, even her leftovers sound good, man. And that Lauryn Hill track is fantastic. It's great. It's good. New project from Action Bronson that I've been getting a lot of requests to cover, and I feel like I'm mostly in the same position I was with his last one. It's just okay. It's messy. It's rough around the edges. Certainly it has charisma to it, but Action Bronson's charisma only carries him so far. He has a sense of humor, he has character, yes, instantly recognizable voice, but not every verse or bar that he puts out is that sharp, is that witty, is that funny. The beat choices are dusty, they have texture, but I'm not blown away by a lot of these instrumentals, and on top of it, the songwriting, it's not really there. The structure, it's not really there. I'm surprised he's putting out stuff like this and claiming it to be an album when really this is just random, throwing it out there, mixtape type quality. New one from Bill Callahan. Thought it was just okay, sadly. Not as instrumentally compelling as his last couple of LPs. I thought that the guitars and the rare bits of accompanying instrumentation on this one were just a bit too still, a bit too slow, a bit too thin and skeletal. Really kind of sucks the wind out of the sails of a lot of these tracks, which is sad because sometimes the storytelling is quite good. Sometimes the narratives are pretty compelling. And there are some points that I should note where Bill Callahan lyrically comes off pretty funny. Like legitimately hilarious, but just the sound and the groove and the vibe of all of it is just so sterile and stiff, and just leaves me feeling like let's get going, let's get some movement going, let's just get a little bit of fluidity, some lubrication going so the joints move. But for the most part, this thing is creaky and it is just locked in place in a way that really just makes the appeal of these songs suffer, in my opinion. You know, the whole thing is like 40 minutes. It's not even a long project, but for whatever reason, when I'm listening to these songs, they just feel like they drag on for so much longer than that. New Kid LAROI, easily some of the worst emo trap that I think I've heard this year. I get that it's Lyrical Lemonade approved and a lot of people are hyping it up, but it's not great. I've enjoyed some of his features for sure, but vocally, songwriting-wise, instrumentally too, this is mediocre on all fronts. Some quality highlights on the new Chicks record, formerly Dixie Chicks. Love that title track. Love some of the more acoustic tunes on here where they're really making use of those harmonies. Those are fantastic. But quite a few songs like March where they're going out of their comfort zone. Instrumental is drawn out, boring, really kind of wears on me. Other tracks that to me feel a little overproduced as far as country music goes. Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix in my opinion. But I will say this is the most I've enjoyed the Dixie Chicks music in a long time. So that's certainly saying something. New joint from ASAP Ferg, Floor Seats 2, which is the album sequel to the original Floor Seats, which was an EP, which I didn't really cover or talk much about because it seemed like such a throwaway, like such a bunch of tracks that kind of hit hard but ultimately wouldn't really stand the test of time. And Floor Seats 2 is somehow even worse, like really weak, forgettable tracks all over this thing. The track with Nicki Minaj is very bland, very generic. That single, that drill single with Lil Wayne, is easily one of the worst songs Ferg has ever put out. And the one with Marilyn Manson. I respect him, you know, doing something kind of unexpected there, but is it one of his best songs? Not really. There are a couple of okay tracks in the mix, but for the most part, it is a very short and very average project for Ferg. I wish he'd come through with another Trap Lord, something on that level of heft and explosivity and excitement, but it just seems like we're not getting that. We're not there. And I don't know why, but we're not there. Whew. New EP from Rich Brian, where he is really trying to switch up his sound a little bit and go pop, which I respect in one sense, because he himself and 88 Rising together are really trying to dominate the charts in their own way and kind of bring their own artists and bring their own flair to that lane and compete hardcore. But I personally, I feel like the quality of the music has really suffered in the transition to just embracing more of a pop style, a pop aesthetic. Numerous tracks on this thing. The Love in My Pocket one, Jesus Christ, like some of his worst tracks ever on this one. I mean, I hope there are some pop fans that have really fallen in love with what he's done here. But for anybody who's really ridden with him for his hip hop material, I just don't really think these songs are going to click. The Streets, one of the most legendary names in hip-hop to come out of the UK, new record, first time in a long time. And I was afraid to talk about this the week that it came out, honestly, because it is so rough. It is so not it, honestly. Like, the hooks don't work. The production is weak. The vocal recording and mixing on track after track after track is subpar or sometimes even god-awful. This feels like I'm listening to a demo. I don't want that to be the case. I used to love the Streets back in college. I want to maintain that view of Mike and his music. But this is really just this is too much. This is just a miss. This is a big miss. Chicago rapper, G Herbo. I know this one came out a while ago. I know it did. I'm aware. It's just taken me a while to try to figure out how I feel about it because I feel like he's made better production choices on this than he did his last LP, and I'm feeling more heart on this one too. His passion really rings through on these tracks, and I love that. I respect that. It seems like there's a lot of focus on him, his surroundings, his personal struggles on this one, with a few good quality, very aggressive bangers laced in as well. But his performances on this thing, his rapping, a lot of the time it's just way too sloppy. It's a bit of a mess, and I just wanted to get to a point where that didn't matter to me so much as I listened to it again and again and again, but I just really couldn't get to that point. I know there are some people who are at that point, and for them, kind of the sloppiness of his delivery is almost like an appeal or the point or just something that you're used to, and that's fine, and that's good. If you enjoy this, I think it's one of the more respectable hip-hop projects this year in terms of an artist really just kind of putting themselves into their music. You can't really say that you come away from an Urbo project not knowing the guy, at least a little bit to some extent. But still, having said that, like I wish the presentation was better. You know, it's really about the presentation at the end of the day for me, and the execution. And I don't know, for me that's really kind of holding the appeal of it back personally. But again, I wouldn't recommend against trying this if you are a hardcore hip hop fan, if you're a trap fan, if you're into, you know, the narratives and the stories that have been coming out of the drill scene in Chicago for years and years and years and years. Certainly, you know, Urbo is at a point where he can kind of look at all of that with a lot of retrospect, a bird's eye view, and comment on it in a passionate and a thoughtful and a personal way. But you know, I wish musically and flow-wise there was a bit more to the record to make it come together, you know? But he's still an artist that I look out for and that I respect quite a bit, even if his music isn't always clicking for me. This new one from Disheveled Cuss that I've been coming back to again and again and again, trying to see if it would click with me. Ultimately, it hasn't really all that much. I mean, I do like the idea of trying to embrace some of the classic forms of indie rock, be they some of the darker stuff, be they some of the, I guess, Pavement-inspired slacker rock riffs and songwriting, and add just a bit more flavor to them in terms of like guitar work, maybe make them a bit more technical, or add some weirdly subversive and intricate details into the mix. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I feel like it's really the songwriting that I wasn't all that crazy about, so it doesn't really matter how much of those details you really add to it if the vocals and the tunes aren't really hitting all that well. But hey, if you're digging it, I can understand why. I think there are a lot of good foundational elements to the record, and certainly a respectable release, you know, debut-wise. New one from Bryson Tiller, and yeah, it's pretty much another helping of some of the most bland and average, very low-key R&B out there. Sure, it's smooth. Sure, it kind of hits like wallpaper. It doesn't really get in the way. I suppose there is a serenity or I guess a gentleness to it that you could note, but outside of that, there's really nothing special about the songwriting, the instrumentals, his vocal ability, or even a lot of the features on this thing too. It's just kind of a meh from me. Zishin, have you given any of these albums a listen? Did you love them? Did you hate them? What would you rate them? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please don't cry. Please don't die. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. YUNOREVIEW. Forever.